Hi, I'm Clark on Temptress, and today I'm going to do a review of another lithium iron phosphate battery. Today we have a rather high-end battery, the SOK. It came in, and when it came in and I unboxed it, I loved it. Then I started doing an analysis, and there was a period I hated it. Eventually I figured it out, and if you're going to have one of these batteries, you need to watch this video. This battery's been hanging around my house for quite a long time. Took me a while to finish the analysis. Like I said, I had to figure it out. But on first view, it's a tremendous battery. I love the case. It's, a plastic case, very waterproof, has an O-ring gasket. Well, not O-ring, but, a gasket, a rubber gasket. At first I thought, I'm not going to take this apart because the case is so beautiful. And honestly, because of the surgery, if you know my history and you watch all my videos, I'm not even allowed to lift this battery. I had to have a friend put it on the bench for me because of, surgery. Enough of that. I didn't even notice, but there are these little rubber plugs and you pop these out. There's screws and this thing comes apart very easily, goes back together. And I think that's a great thing in a battery. When they're glued together, if you ever do need to go in the future, it's a horror. For me, at least now, it's great that it screws together, and for you in the future as well. Okay, this battery has cold weather protection. It also has a heater inside, and that's a really great thing, the two of those together. If you put this in like a camper or a mountain house or something, and it gets exposed to really cold weather, charging one of these in cold weather will destroy them pretty darn fast. With that setup, not only will it not take a charge when it's too cold, unsafe, but it redirects the energy from the charger to go to a heater, heats up the battery, and then it can take a charge. So if you're in a cold place and the solar panels get some sun in the morning and before the frost is off, you're all covered. It has a warranty. I think it's 11 years, 1 year longer than 10. I'm sure that's why they did it. Has a Bluetooth radio, and it's a good one. It tells you what's going on with the cell voltages, which is what's really important and why we need a Bluetooth radio. It even has a fire extinguisher inside, like the VoltGo has. I don't expect a lithium iron phosphate battery to ever really have a thermal runaway problem, but, protection's protection, right? Good on it. The case has these screws that you can put these plates on so you can bolt this battery right down to the surface, much like the VoltGo. I think that's highly valuable. The VoltGo I have on Temptress, I did that, and it was way easier to install than having to figure out a strapping system. And for some people, this will be important. They have these ports here, and you can kind of daisy chain the batteries, and then the last battery you can tie into the Victron system. I don't have any way of testing that here, but then you let the battery tell the Victron when it's full. That'll be useful for some of you, but this battery doesn't know when it's full. Of course, I'm a fan of the BankManager, and it knows when it's full. So it's better, in my opinion, to not use this and use this approach, but you do what you like. So, put this on the bench, pulled out my BankManager, gave it a charge. BankManager says, yeah, it took a charge great. I was happy, and then I do what I normally do. The first thing I do in an analysis is then I take the BankManager off, because this guy will stop at 100% state of charge. But to know what's really happening with the balance of the battery, you've got to overcharge the battery, and well, that's what I did. So hook it directly to power source and started messing with it directly. Well, that's where the weirdness started. So it took a charge and the cell voltages went up until it hit 14 volts and then it would not take a charge anymore. And that's not right. Also, to add insult to injury, the app didn't say that it wasn't taking a charge anymore. There's a way that the app can say, I've been overcharged, I'm shutting down. It didn't in any way tell you you were shutting down. So if you have this battery and you're charging and suddenly there's no amps flowing in your system, but you know the battery's not like overcharged, like you're trying to do a balance, you have to suspect that this guy shut down early, even if the app says it didn't. If you don't know that, or at least have that in your plan, you may think there's a problem with your charging system when really just the battery said I've had enough. Why did the battery shut down at 14 volts? Here's why. It's the reason you want a BankManager. Lithium iron phosphate should be charged to 100%. 100% is not any given voltage. It's a really complex thing to know when you've hit it. If you learn to charge your batteries by looking what the battery manufacturers say, you will learn to charge them wrong. They are not telling you how to charge it right because there kind of is only the one way to charge it right that I can find. But if you charge them over 100%, they will have a short life. And remember, this is a company with an 11-year warranty. So they're putting out batteries and they're getting them back. They're defective, they're failing. They're not defective, they've been overcharged. So they are trying to protect their asset, you know? They're trying to make their batteries not get overcharged. And one of the words for that type of overcharge, if you're in forums and you're looking it up or reading the academic papers, is called low current overcharge. It's actually what we refer to it as. And why it happens is if you charge at a low current, the voltage won't come up very high, but it will still overcharge the battery eventually. So they took that absolutely literally. They put a Band-Aid of a fix in their BMS. And their logic is, if you're charging at less than 5 amps, when you hit 14 volts, shut down. Well, that is not the right answer, but if you know that, you can work around things. So knowing that is what's vitally important. So back to this. I tried to get this thing to balance and couldn't. I contacted the company, had good communication with the marketing woman that, you know, has been handling this. But she didn't know. And I asked her if she would please put me in touch with an engineer. And I got talking to an engineer, and it took a couple go back and forth, but he finally told me what was happening, told me his logic, and well, that let me continue. They gave me a whole lot of Band-Aid fixes, like just do this and the cells will balance. It doesn't really work. So here's how you balance the cells in an SOK. Charge the thing up to 14 volts. Try to hold it just under 14 volts and charge it at very, very low current until you get it as charged as you can. Now at 14 volts, the cells won't be up into the hockey stick far enough that you'll be able to really, you know, get them to balance, but you'll get a lot of the work done. Then you're going to have to go above 14 volts to get it to balance properly. And how you're going to do that is don't charge at 5 amps. You're going to have to charge faster. You're going to have to charge at like 7 amps. If you look at my video on how to balance a lithium iron phosphate battery, I think I title it something like what you do with a new lithium iron phosphate battery. I recommend a bench charger. There's one here behind, but I don't want to move things around. Anyway, in that video, I recommend a bench charger. In the description, you know, give you a link to it so you can see it on Amazon. That charger will go over 5 amp, that particular one. So if you've got that 12 volt version of that one, that'll be great. Charge it at 7 amps, get it up, right on up, and then apparently you can just let it cook up there and it will do its balance. Now the balance is a passive balancer, which means it only balances at 100 milliamps. So it's going to take a while. This is going to be likely a couple days of your life getting this initially balanced out. But once it's balanced out, it looks like a great battery. I really wish they wouldn't have done that. I know why they did it, you know, to protect the battery, but like in a way, it's a compliment to me because it's saying, you know, this thing is doing it right and this is what we should be doing to batteries. So they're kind of agreeing with me in a way, not that they know this exists. But it's just, well, I wish they wouldn't have done it. Anyway, I continued with my analysis. Next step is I hooked an inverter up to it. I had it run this heat gun, ran it for 20 minutes, and in the 20 minutes, it did not get hot. I opened up the case, used my infrared camera. Their internal wiring and their BMS stayed nice and cool. The BMS is actually connected to this piece of aluminum that is brought outside, so it has an external heat sink, and that's an extra deal. Anyway, the wiring inside, everything looked nice and cool, ran just the way you'd want it. In fact, my 1-aught cables got hotter than their internal wiring. Probably, you know, maybe I didn't tighten it down just exactly hard enough, or I got crappy wire from China. But anyway, passed that test with flying colors. Let's see how it stacks up with the other batteries. Capacity, well, I'm going to give that an absolute excellent. It's more than the 314 amp hours it says it is. So, hey, like that. Cells. Cells look great. I asked them what cells they were. Honestly, I've forgotten, so I'll put that in text on the screen here. That company is the third biggest cell manufacturer in China. So, you know, it's not fly by night, but, you know, you might not have heard of it. Build quality, I'm going to give it a good, and it's hard for me to give it a good because absolutely everything about this battery is excellent, but I've been putting the BMS in the build quality section, and I don't like that 14-volt shutdown. Oh, I forgot. I also don't like that they've set the cell voltage limit. Not that you probably would ever get up there, but the cell voltage limit is 3.8 volts per cell. Commonly, you want this to be 3.65 volts per cell. And for some reason, they've chosen this very, very, very high number. I just don't like that. I actually have never charged it up that high, so I didn't even verify it shuts down at that number because it just scares me. It's just too high. On with the evaluation. The company, truly excellent. Of course, I'm not talking to the same customer service people you'll be talking to. I get a little, you know, tighter connection because they're trying to get me to review the battery. But the people I am talking to are very professional. They were very helpful. When I explained that they had issues with their battery, they didn't get all defensive. They said, hey, yeah, let's look into this. I'd like to learn. So I'm going to give them an excellent. And then the final thing is cost to value. This is not a cheap battery. This is like just under $1,000. That's a lot of money. Like anything else, it comes down to what's it worth to you. If you've got the budget that, $500,000 doesn't really matter to me, well, it's nice, very pretty. I'd probably get this one. If every dollar counts, I kind of am becoming a bigger fan all the time of the really cheap batteries. The really cheap batteries have very simple BMSs that don't pull those tricks. And as long as you're going to use a BankManager with them, I think that's the way to go. So again, cost to value, give it a good, but that's completely up to you. Well, that's my analysis of the SOK. I personally love this battery. I just love the case. I love that it's 300 amp hours in this footprint. That's a lot of battery in a small amount of space. I'm going to actually be taking all the batteries out of my camper, and this is going into my camper. So I'm keeping it because I like it that much. Balancing the cells was a pain for me, but hopefully after this video, you'll find, yeah, okay, you got to do what you got to do, but then you can do it. So every time you decide to rebalance the cells, keep notes on what I've said in this video and just do that. And, well, have a great day. Bye.